last but not least, we have a recognition of former councilman and council president John Snyder. And Marcia has a plaque. Marcia, I'll hand it off to you.
All right. Well, we're glad your wife made it tonight, John. So I just want to, we had a plaque made for him. I'll read it quickly. It says, Distinguished Public Servant Award, John Snyder. Planning Commission member, 1989 through 1998. That's a long time to be on that Planning Commission.
Well, it was.
Wow. That's a rough bunch of people. North Canton City Councilman, Ward 4, 1998 to 2014. That is pretty awesome. And I know Doug got like a year or two on him, but that's still pretty good. President of Council, I just wrote numerous years. I couldn't add them up. And last, I said, dedicated to North Canton community as a councilman, mentor, and friend. And we really appreciate your service. It's very personal for me, dating back, 13 years ago this month. Daryl resigned, Tom Rice became mayor, and there was an at-large seat open. And crazy me with a 6-month-old and a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old said, hey, why not me? And Daryl Vold, I went to church with him, and he was like, yeah, why not you? And so I came and I interviewed. Greg was one of them, Doug. And really, I don't know how seriously I took it at first. And I thought, oh, this would be awesome. I remember calling John the night before they decided who they were going to appoint, and he just laughed and laughed and laughed. He's like, wow, you want this really bad, don't you? And he's like, don't worry, kid, it'll be okay. And I got appointed. Which, when I sat here with my husband, I remember standing up being sworn in and looking at my husband was like, what the heck just happened? Here we are, 13 years later. Obviously I was off for the 2 years, but 11 years with John. He's a dear friend of mine. I can honestly say I talk to John more than I do any of my friends in the last 13 years. Probably more than my mom. So I know that's sad, but it's true. We obviously have this in common, and we both are very passionate about what we do. And we're truly going to miss you up here, John.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Been an asset to the finance, to Karen, to all our finance directors. You're very knowledgeable in everything that we do up here, just like knowing if we called off the holiday or not. So we appreciate all your hard work, all the effort and time. You know, people talk about this being a part-time job. Not for John. I can say, yeah, for me, it's definitely a part-time job. I put 5-10 hours a weekend. John definitely put 15 to 20 hours a weekend. And he was up here a lot, doing everything he possibly could to make things go right. So we really appreciate that. So I will leave it up to anybody else who'd like to speak. I know Greg's in the audience, who's served with them many years too, but that is your plaque.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Please comment. I want to echo a lot of what Marcia said. I was here when you came here, and when you put 16 years plus of service in as a council member, and many of those years you were voted council president, that's just a testimony of your abilities and your leadership qualifications and just your community interests that you have. And I want to commend you on that. Even when we didn't see eye to eye on some issues, you were very professional. You explained your point of view very eloquently, and you had a good head on your shoulders, and you handled meetings probably in a softer tone than I've done, and that was refreshing in that sense, because this could be a thankless job. You're not always going to make everybody happy, but you did a lot of great things for North Canton, and I enjoyed serving with you. And we'll all miss you up here, but especially the time commitment that you had. And I think it takes a special person to want to sit in that chair and deal with the daily operations of just the council office and the budget and so forth. And it's just, when you chaired finance, I don't think anybody could have done a better job, during your tenure. So I want to congratulate you and thank you for your years of service.
Thank you, Douglas.
John, I also wanted to thank you. When I ran for council back in '02, I had no idea what I was getting into. And the first person to reach out to me was you. It wasn't a phone call, you came to my home. You sat in my living room, you sat with me and my wife and my 2 young children at the time. And you gave me comfort. I mean, I was about as scared as could be. Not knowing what the heck I got myself into. And after talking to you, put me in a comfort zone and ready to go to work. And I knew you put a lot of hours in. I didn't realize just what you put up with sitting in this chair. And it's to do it for as long as you did. This is absolutely amazing, and a heartfelt thank you for your service and for being a friend and a mentor. And no one could have done it better.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to say something? Yeah. Obviously, the mayor couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted me to make sure I pass along, his respect and appreciation for your long service to the city. I think he saw you before. He said, if I had a penny for every time you two talked, I would be a rich man. I came here in '78, and you ran a clothing store. You were quite the dapper dresser, and you sold suits that I couldn't afford as a patrolman. One thing that you did do, as I remember, is you wanted us to look well, because we did wear ties back in the day, clip-on ties, and you'd send us up a box of ties just to make sure we didn't look too raggedy out on the streets. So I still remember that. And I think the other time is when you used to have to pick up your packets down at the police department on the weekends, and there's no way you could sneak in and out without us, cornering you over something. So I don't know how long it took you to pick up your packets, but we usually kept you there at least a half hour, 45 minutes, and you always took the time to talk to us. And then when I made chief and now administrator, you always had the time to talk with me and, counsel me, and I really appreciate that, because you've always been very level. It's the same no matter whether we agreed or disagreed or whatever, and I respect what you've done for the city, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
John, just a couple of things. Growing up here and all, just the longevity that you've had here, like a fixture in this town. We've been through a lot of good, bad, and ugly times through here. Across the street, that you've helped lead this community. So I commend you on that, and congratulations for retiring. And just from my own personal, some of the growing pains that you have when you take over this thing, you were always right there. And I think everybody who started that. So I personally really appreciate that, and I've always remembered that. So congratulations.
Thanks, Mark, I appreciate that.
Well, I echo all of that, the personal mentorship that you have provided thus far, and that I will continue to demand of you, of course, as we've talked. It means the world. I think we forget that politics is the art of the possible. But John, you embody that, the art of getting things done, which in local government is the most important thing that any of us do, to be able to cut through that and find a way to a path to success if at all possible. And I don't know of any of us who do it as well as you have done it too. So you're very well deserved.
Thanks, man.
John, I just want to say a couple things. I knew you the shortest amount of time, but if you remember in the interview process, well, I did butter you up because I said you looked like a movie star. He had this look, and I couldn't remember what show it was, and he had that voice, and so I think you can do a voiceover career coming up. It might be way more rewarding, I don't know. But from that moment, and just your genuineness and your appreciation for who we were as individuals, and even to what our families do. I mean, every time we came in, you would always say, how's your husband, how's your family, or I saw this, I saw that. And that you did it with citizens. You did it with people that didn't like what you said. You did it with people that did like what you said. And I just learned so much from you. I think when Doug said I would handle those meetings very differently, and you were always so patient and kind to everybody. And that's hard to pull off. And what I've learned in this year and a half, I will take with me for the rest of my life, and I will miss you.
Thanks, Steph, I appreciate that.
Hey, John. So I'm the new guy in the block. You guys are making me really feel bad because
You're 100 pounds lighter.
well, obviously there's some big shoes to fill, and I'm just like, man, maybe I bit off more than I can chew. But at any rate, I do appreciate you calling me and offering up some, if I need some guidance and help, which I'm going to take you up on that. But I don't know if you remember, but years ago when you worked at Mr. Ted, I bought a suit from you, and you said you have to dress for success. So when I was doing my business, I had no success, so I had to basically fake it till I could make it, I guess. But thanks for the advice there, and hopefully the future advice will come for me to do a better job for the citizens here.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Greg, come on up.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo everything the council said. I was there when he came, but I'd like to add one thing. I certainly hope that John Snyder is not done serving this community. So don't bury him yet. He's got a lot more to do. So, thanks, John.
Thanks, Greg. That's kind. Well, to my colleagues, Excuse me. Thank you.
No, that's a lot of emotion because you know how much you care, John.
You know, I hope people, when they do realize I'm not here, that they remember the passion I have for the city, the passion I have for the constituency that I serve, my colleagues, probably the finest group of men and women that I had the pleasure to serve. Administration, the law director, it takes a lot of lumps, but we enjoyed it. I was here, you know, most of you guys were pups when you started. And we brought up Marcia, you know, she's very close to my heart. I'll miss it. But, you know, circumstances will change. As Greg says, God willing, things do change. I may return. I'll be here. I'll do whatever I can to help each and every one of you. My passions run very deep for the community. When I came here, when I first came as a councilman in '98, when Darrell became mayor, I remember Doug saying, my God, how many recommendations does the man have? You know, anybody in the community, I had probably sent 30 or 40 letters of recommendation. I wanted that job. I ran unsuccessfully against Darrell, who was at that time a 15 or 18 year veteran, so I ran the race. I knew what it was like. I knew what I was getting into, and I inherited probably the worst infrastructure in the Fourth Ward, as well as flooding at the Zimber, and I worked 18 years on the Zimber. And finally, hopefully sometime maybe this end of July or August, we'll see the fruits of our first group of homes to be purchased and continue on there, because that's been a challenge. I've seen, we purchased a golf course, which we got criticized for. It was probably financially, and trust me, finances are my background, so I'm schooled in. It was a good investment for the city. We put $2.5 million of our own money. We financed internally $2.5 million. We received $100,000 a year with a $30,000 to $40,000 profit at an interest rate, and we still have a $4 million property. So from the day one, that was not a bad investment. I mean, it's probably less than $500,000 left in debt, and you have a property that you maintain for the people into perpetuity. It could have been 250 houses with a lot of roads and a lot of infrastructure and no money to service that. It's now paying the schools over $50,000, $60,000 in income tax. So you should all be proud of that. And anytime anybody says that, it's a shame, but it's a good investment. I was the architect on 17 balanced budgets. I was the architect with the deal with Aqua of Ohio, which pays $250,000 a year to the water department, the second highest income earner in the community. There's many things to be done. As I said, when I came here, we had $23 million in the bank. When I left, we only had about $2 million. So that's not speaking well of my ability to manage. But we did well. And we will balance the budget. You guys will balance the budget in 15. I know you're going to come back and work hard to see for new income streams, and that you just don't put the pressure on all the citizenry. But again, thank you very, very much for all your kind words. I'll miss it. You know, I'm home, but I don't miss public speaks, but I do miss people, miss talking. I had a long-term relationship with the clerk from the day she got here as an assistant to the day she resigned, and a high degree of flattery. When I told her I was leaving, she changed her date from August 1st to June 1st, just to compensate me. She's a good friend. Tim's a good man. He's worked hard. He's learning the same as you are, but he's a good guy. And I read the paper, but he was always honest and straight up with me, and I do appreciate that, always. You know, there was many things. It's not easy to do it. I mean, you're serving 16,000 people, and they all want your neck. But you guys do a great job. And to Jim Benikas, probably one of the best engineers in the county. We put a lot of pavement down, Jim and I. We did a lot of things, a lot of jobs, a lot of creativity. He's a good man, and he probably will be with you a couple more years. And Mike Grimes, probably the best administrator the city's had. He grew up on, he cut his teeth in it. They have a great chief of police now. Everything's in place. So you can only go upward. You can't go backwards at this time. You're going to find a school system in the country, and it's all there. Just put it together. And I would be flattered to answer anybody's calls. Once in a while, it's better at home sitting there, and my wife's at her theater, so I'm worried by myself. Please call me and let me know what's going on. Thank each and every one of you for your friendship, and thank you very, very much for your kind words, and thank you very much for the kindness that you expressed to my wife. I much appreciate it. Thank you.